So, hello, Debbie.
Hi.
Hi. And so initially we met. Debbie was running an event for Albright in Manchester. I think it was in Harvey Nichols.
Mm,
And I went along and I loved Debbie's vibe from the off. We stayed in touch a bit, but we've connected more of late again. So there was when you were developing your brand and tone of voice,
hmm
and we had some check-ins on that, and I was already just starting to love this new direction because I'd seen you do the FDisruptors for the
Yeah.
tech startup, and then when I saw you doing this just felt like you'd come home if you were doing
Mm,
this without
yeah.
sounding too
Yeah.
cheesy.
True.
This really felt like you, and also just really connected back. This The thing for the self love, the superpower, and being fueled by self love. And there was a couple of posts that you've sent lately as well, because they've been keeping me going little bits this year as well. So there was one about I wrote it down here, so I forget about you are not building your business, your body is, which I
Mm,
just thought was huge for things we can discuss later as
yeah.
well. Um, and another big one that helped me this year was we don't need to be totally on holiday or
Yeah.
at work. It can
hmm
be a bit of both.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just some really simple things that just so you know that you put them out there and they landed. So thank you
Nice. That's
for
what I like to
those.
hear because you can feel like you're talking into a vortex on Instagram, can't you? But yeah, I'm glad they landed because they've been a really big part of my year this year. Both of those,
Yeah.
sort of posts have come directly from my own experience. So it'd be lovely to talk a bit more about that.
Yeah. No, well, we will do as we go in. And, but I just thought if we start with this talk, so when I said about this feeling like home, and there's also been other things before FDisruptors, of course, before you even got to here. Um, so I don't know if you want to talk just a little bit about that journey of how you've got to here, and then
hmm
what's made that change into really owning this new direction and owning this space that you've created for yourself and others.
Yeah, of course. Well, I write a lot about my journey, and I must admit there have been times in this past year, in particular, when I write about it, and I have to sit back and take a pause because reminding myself of how challenging and difficult it was at times is a little bit confronting for me. So I started off in my 20s in quite male dominated environments that included the Royal Navy, the Royal Marines, doing their TV and press advertising, and then working for people like the ruler of Sharjah out in the Middle East, which is, you know, for a woman at that time, which was nearly 30 years ago now, it was pretty confronting at the time. Um, and I think I spent the majority of my 20s just hurling myself at every single what looked to the outside like an amazing opportunity, but was pretty tough going at the time, really tough. And not just hurling myself at the opportunities, but then creating a pace for myself that meant that I didn't even factor in my own health in any of that. And mainly because, and I'm not sure whether there's still an element of this for people who are all starting out in their career, was that pace that gets set for women, which is the 20s are the time when you really set yourself up for success. So forget you having needs, forget you having a life, just follow your ambitions, say yes to everything, and literally chuck yourself into it. And I think that overriding program means that subconsciously we are learning to completely override the fact that we are human beings and we have needs in order to work at a certain level. So I, for example, would be, when I'd be filming adverts for the Royal Navy, I wouldn't sleep for 72 hours when I was on location, because I would go from filming to then watching the rushes to then having 2 hours of sleep and going back out to filming at dawn, because we did the dawn to dusk thing. And never even questioning it, because it was like the world said, this is just what you do. And also the world said, suck it up, buttercup. If this is what you say you want, then this is what you get. A lot of pain, a lot of suffering, suck it up, get on with it. And eventually you think there's going to be this massive payout and trade-off, don't you, where you'll reach a successful point and then I can breathe and look after myself. And you're like, then you get to your 30s and you have kids and you're like, oh shit, I've just thrown something else into the same mix. And that still isn't working for me. And I'm still now expected in my 30s with 2 kids to still carry on being hugely ambitious and still give 120% every single day, as well as now trying to be the perfect mother, you know. And then you get to your 40s when you think you've finally made it and, okay, it's okay now for me to be fully myself and be really authentic. And the world starts to go, oh, sorry, I think you're done now. We're going to close a few doors in your face. And you're like, fuck me, you know, excuse my language.
No, go for
But
it.
you're like, nobody told me that was coming on the horizon. Nobody told me in my 20s, when I was leaving my needs behind, that I'd get to 40 and then suddenly I'd be asked to go on the downward trajectory for my career. So the truth is, you know, I had a moment when I was 27 when I saw somebody saying that they were a life coach. And at that time, everyone was like, life coach, what the heckety heck is that? Life coach?
I did
Oh my,
exactly the same.
yeah. And you know, let's be honest, I'd just come out of a career in the Navy where, you know, my boss was called the Second Sea Lord, and my instruction you know, my my instructions when I was putting together adverts was to not bring him any fucking bunny hugging, tree hugging concepts. So yeah, so I was working in that sort of, ooh, don't be yourself, don't be soft, don't be gentle, because there was something about life coaching even then that I thought, I think that's a piece of me, but society just was not ready for it, and I wasn't ready for the fight. I just thought, no,
Yeah.
let's just crack on. I've got all these years in now, you know, 27, all these years in. I better keep going. You know, I can't step off this wheel now because, oh, you know, I'm so old now. So it wasn't until I got to my 40s, and I think I've just always had this really, two things really, burning desire to really empower others by creating safe spaces that allow them to be their full fuck yes selves, unapologetic, deeply knowing, fully connected to their own unique wisdom. I've always wanted that. And I think I've always imparted that in all of my work, no matter how challenging the environment. But I've also always wanted to have to deliver my work in the way that is truly me, which is gentle and softly powerful. That's just who I am. And I am, I describe myself, I am just a giant ball of love. And I've been like that since I was a kid, but I've had that knocked out of me throughout my entire life, because people would say, you're not going to survive in the world being this kind and this nice. And then they would say, and I don't actually believe you are this nice. Surely nobody can be this nice and kind. And then we created this world, especially in work, where being nice and kind wasn't cool. And
Of
you
no
had to be really
value.
no value whatsoever. And you had to be tough and kick ass. And women, especially, had to be ruthless and stepping over each other and just be so competitive. And I got to a point in my 40s where I thought, I can't do that anymore. There's nothing in the tank for me anymore. And also by then I had such a dysregulated nervous system that I didn't know who the hell I was and what the hell I wanted.
That's been my year.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
and when you reach that, it can throw you for such a loop because you think you've been crafting yourself and building a body of work, and then you get to a point where you have never felt so lost. And your body and your mind can't figure out why, because you've been
Just such
running
a
at it.
disconnect.
Such a disconnect. Yeah, such a disconnect. So that was when I stepped out of the corporate world and doing all of this for others. And I designed FDisruptors, which was my tech startup designed to help young women aged 13 to 18 go into tech. Because by then I'd been in that world of tech and I knew that the world of tech did not deserve the passion of those young women. So I needed to equip them to go in and be the game changers, but to do it from their own self, not to do it for others and go in and fight, but to do it for themselves and then go in and have the grounded confidence to stand in those arenas that were still dominated by others and make changes, you know. And it was just the most fabulous and enriching time that I've ever had. And that was probably the catalyst to leading me here.
Yeah. And how do you describe here?
Here is home, exactly how you described it. Here is the most, I think when we did our first session together, actually, I used two words together and you went, ooh, that's different. And I said, there's like a soft certainty to my life now. And something I felt really landed with you when I said those words. It's like a
Yeah,
soft certainty because, you
still
know, the
feel.
world would describe a knowing as having to be powerful and purposeful and passionate, whereas I don't feel like that anymore. I have this soft certainty, this gentle inner knowing. And in many ways, what I describe and I use in my work now is like a neutrality in my body where I don't need to get overly excited and I don't need to be overly disappointed. I just need to be in the middle bit where my body is fully mine and owned by me in any given moment. And then I give what I want to the projects that I want to work on. But ultimately, I am the source. And that's what this particular time feels like, is that I just spend my time daily cultivating the source of my energy and then direct it where I want it to go.
And do you see the women that come and work with you? Do you see them, what you've just described sort of mirrored back? Because I'm listening to you and I'm just like, yes,
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
Not the military, but mine was more in the advertising and brand world, but very much that where I'd had to suppress my softer side, and nobody particularly asked me, but it just sort of happens, and the environments and the places where you are, it sort of insinuates that's what you have to do. I think we sort of get these secondary signals. And so even though it was a different industry, do you see it being mirrored in different people, in the different women coming to work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. They fall in two camps, really. Some of them fall into the camp that I described when they get to 40 and then look around and go, what the hell?
Yeah.
Who am I?
I
Who
think mine was in
am
my
I?
30s, but it's similar,
Yeah,
similar.
yeah. It's that untethered, lost feeling compounded by sheer exhaustion. And yet you're at that level where you absolutely deserve to go to the CEO or the managing director level, but you look at that and the only role models you see are more women that probably feel like you, selling even more of themselves to get there. And you think something snaps and you go, no, I've sacrificed enough. I'm not going there. And with those women, the work that I do is dissolving all of the things that they think they need to be in order to achieve those big roles, so that I can help them to see that they can do it in a way that's softer and gentler and does not command any more of their life that they're willing to sacrifice. No more. But they don't believe it at first, that it can be possibly done a different way. So we
It's a
spend
lifetime
a
indoctrination, isn't it?
lifetime of it. What I call an old program has been running for so long that the first thing we have to do is deprogram you and unlearn all of the things you think it takes. Even using the word big job, it's not. It ain't that big. It isn't that serious. So there's an element of deathbed thinking, which is what I call it, which is like, guys, doesn't have to be this serious, doesn't have to be this big. You don't have to constantly pull yourself up by your bootstraps, which is what I hear people describing. So some of the things that we do first and foremost is I work with women at that level to still help them to dream their audacious dreams, but not be prepared to sacrifice themselves to get it. And that's bloody beautiful, because the ease that they move throughout their lives. I mean, I've just, come off a podcast with another lady that I've interviewed, and she's just gone into her next level dream job in artificial intelligence, a globally renowned position. And she's like, yeah, it's easy this. And she said she would never have believed that that was possible for her, given the depth of the old programming that she was running. So for them women, it's like I bridge the gap between them deciding to completely leave
Yeah.
and give their entire career up, and I bridge that gap for a little while and say, work with me so that I can help you see a different way to do this. And then if you want to, we'll go again, but we'll do it in a much more powerful way. And that is beautiful to see, because we still need women to
Yeah.
get to those decision-making leadership positions, but we don't need to be encouraging women to do that while sacrificing their own needs. I think one thing that you said recently that resonated on one of my posts was, you can't keep having a high-performing career or business with a low-maintenance plan.
Yes.
It's not possible. I mean, you
Yes.
literally have to be Mariah Carey at this point. We have to have more high maintenance needs, but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean, again, it's another stereotype that women think, well, does that mean I'm needy, or I'm demanding, or I'm difficult? Oh, it's like takes us down so many windy roads of stereotypical images that we really don't want to be, when ultimately it's just about tending to yourself deeply at the same level as you want to rise.
Yeah, and also then that for them going into it that way is also the leaders that we need. We don't need to continue the alpha toxicity
Yeah.
in a different skin. Like it,
Yeah.
it needs to be different, and it's only going to be different if you're feeling it yourself, and that you're giving that vibe out as well. And I think we're just trained that we shouldn't have this extra help and we shouldn't have this extra support, and this high maintenance thing is a bad thing. But if you look at how others have done it, it's all like on the golf course, or it's like, and then in the car, and then they've got a PA, and then it's a secretary. That's all normal. That's
Yeah.
not high maintenance.
No.
And it's like,
No.
it's
normal maintenance.
It's just normal. And I think we're just told so much that we shouldn't need as much, and we should be the carers and looking after everybody else.
Yeah.
And so I love this message. And also just hearing you talk then, I realised I hadn't twigged before, but the similarity between the FDisruptors and this, just a different age group and a different category. But
completely. Completely.
But the same thing of like going to this yourself, going this with all your full power as you, and absolutely rock this. And whether that's coders for younger, I want to say code for girls, or if it's for women going in for the CEO.
Yeah.
It's this, I love that. I hadn't made that connection before.
Yeah, and in all honesty, I think I only made that a few months ago. I was like, I had a moment when I was like, oh my God, it's the same thing.
Well, when you look back, you notice the red threads,
Yeah,
as it were. Um, so then I bring that helps bring us actually to the question of what going niche has meant for you and how you see it. And I think, not to answer it straight off, but just a little bit of that going from the FDisruptors to this, I think it's that element has always been in there. So
yeah,
that's quite interesting. It's just sort of like sharpening, sharpening, sharpening as you've gone
yeah,
down.
yeah.
How do you see it?
When I look back on what I did with FDisruptors, that was very niche
Yeah,
at the time. Very niche, because everyone was talking about needing to get more women into technology, but nobody was doing it in the way that I was doing it, which was saying, guys, we're talking about sending women, young women, into an environment that isn't always friendly, welcoming, can be quite toxic. And also, they might be one on a team of 10, 20, 40, 100. That's a lot for anyone to take in. And the
yeah,
statistics at the time were there was only 17% of women going into technology and 45% of women were leaving mid-career. So
right.
there was a sandwich there that wasn't working. It was like they were going in at a very low level, and the ones that went in were getting stuck and thinking, this is not enjoyable, and they were leaving. So you didn't just have you had a leaky bucket as well as a sort of pouring the water into a leaky bucket. And I just presumed, because I'd been in enough male dominated challenging environments, that it was getting the girls prepared for that there was going to make the change. And that was the niche bit. But I niched down again because I didn't want to do it from, oh, let me get you prepared for work and teach you about presentation skills and this and that. So I did a 4-month program with 10 young women aged 13 to 17. And I designed the first month so that they would come to me every Wednesday for 3 to 4 hours on a Wednesday. And I designed that first month so that I could spend my time telling them and showing them how fucking amazing they were. And that was it. So that was niche because, firstly, you've got young girls who are in an education system who probably are not getting taught about themselves. You've got an education system that is also telling them about, well, the only thing that matters about you right now is your educational attainment. And I was bringing in things like yoga, mindfulness. I was talking to them I did this exercise called From White Box to Gift Box, which was, I got them to consider that this box was like the white walls of their lives. And on those walls, I only wanted them to write things that, because the walls were so white and fresh and you could see everything on them, I wanted them to just write words that they instinctively knew, if they were honest with themselves in the safety of this room, that they wanted to see on the walls. And they sat and they wrote these most amazing things about themselves. And this was like the second session in. And I remember sitting in that room, and I can feel it in my chest now, because I remember one by one they started to look around the room, and then they'd go back down, and I had all the pens out and everything, and then they'd look up again at me, and I was thinking, it's too much, too much. I've asked them for too much. I started to panic, and then I said, right, girls, let's just take a moment. I said, I've noticed a lot of you are looking up, looking around the room, you're looking at me. What's going on? And one by one, they just sort of, I could see their entire body soften. And one by one, they said, we've never done an exercise like this with an adult who's asked us to think about how we feel about ourselves. And I was just like blown away by that. Yeah.
Like there's something in my eye.
Yeah. You know? And we had to just sit with it for a minute because I could feel that from them. I could feel that it was alien, but nice, but it was they were accessing something that they'd never accessed in their entire lives. And then at the end of that exercise, because I bought they were like giant cake boxes. So at the end of that, I'd sent them out the room for their snack. I put all these boxes together, and then I placed a gift bow on the top. And then when they came back in one by one, I gifted it to them and said, "This is you. This is you. You are the gift," you know? And the tears flowed for all of us, because I think just that exchange between an adult in their lives and the exchange within themselves, and just having time to think, what do I think of myself? Never mind all of the energy I spend wondering what other people think of me. It was, what do I think of myself? And to see then the honesty of the words, the beautiful words that they put in their boxes, was just, there are memories during that program that have framed me and shaped me that I will never forget, and that is one of them.
Yeah.
So, that allowing them to be in their softness. And then I think at the end of that session, I took them up on the roof and we did yoga while the sun set. And it was beyond magical. Beyond magical. The feedback from that night was just beyond magical. But that first month was to do things that I felt scared to do, because I knew they'd probably never done it before. I didn't see anyone else in the industry doing it. And do you know what? 3 weeks in, because the next session after that gift session was, right, we're in a warehouse, because we'd been thankfully gifted a warehouse to spend our time in. We're in a warehouse, and I said, there's paper all over the walls. We're going to talk through every single fear that you have in your life, and then we're going to overcome it, or I'm going to tell you what it really means. And we spent hours doing it. And then the following week, they all walked in, and every single one of them had this urgency about them. And I just thought, they're going to quit. They're going to quit.
Right, you didn't see it as a positive, like
they're going to quit. Yeah. And that might have been my fear. But the way they came in, they were different. There was an energy that was different. I thought, they've all been talking on TikTok or on Snapchat, and they're like, this woman's off her head. We're all out. So they sat down, and I could feel it. I said, right, what's going on? And they all looked at each other like they had a spokesperson ready. I was like, oh God. So I said, what's going on? They were like, right, Debbie, we've never felt like this. We've never felt as confident, and we've never felt like this about ourselves before. And we've decided we want more. And they started then to demand more of what we'd done, because they were getting filled up by it. They were filling themselves up with love for themselves.
Well, when you said you saw them soften in the first bit, like even when you just asked them why they were all looking around, and you see them soften, it's just so interesting to see, like, just seeing those body transformations. So you see the soften, and then you see it build, and then you see this power coming through, and then the power coming through even made you nervous.
Yeah, it did. I thought they were out, I did, because I knew that I was doing things that naturally would make them feel uncomfortable. But really interestingly, the wonderful thing about doing that kind of work, the younger you can get them, the more pliable they are, because they don't have as many established fears and resistance.
But they still had them already. That's also what I was thinking. We talked about, we get to in our 20s, in our 30s. They're not even there yet, and they already are having these the invisible limitations that we feel and stuff already having them.
Yeah. And then they were like, well, we want more. And so after that night we sat down and crafted, what do you want then? So 4 weeks after that, which is only 8 weeks into a program with, don't forget, they're 13 to 17, they came to Newcastle with me and launched my business. They did presentations to a room of corporate, sort of like 100 corporate people and VCs and all sorts. They did that. Then they networked in a room afterwards, and I just said, that's it, you go and network. And they were like, well, what does networking mean? I said, well, all networking means is that you're going to have some really great adults who want to listen to what you want to say. And they were like, okay, then. I had to drag them out to get the last train back from Newcastle. And the level of noise on that train, because then they said, if that's what networking is, we want more of it. And I was like, you never hear that from women.
No.
Never hear
No.
that.
I love it.
It
It's
was amazing.
changing them to be able to change their approach. It's like this armor, but not in a rigid sense. So I don't know how you'd call it, like a protection. And yeah.
It was the safety, you have to create safety in all of your work, in all of my work. I have to create safety because there's a level of discovery that you need to get to.
Yeah.
You have to go inward and find out who the essence of you was before the world happened to you. Then you have to love what you see, which is a totally different thing.
Yeah.
No,
and I guess like being so specific about those girls, what they're doing and why they're doing it, made that more powerful. So getting so specific on it.
Yeah. I think that you have to be specific. This is probably a nice segue if you want to go there about the debate on niching. I mean, my God, it's amazing, isn't it, that niche or don't niche is so polarizing in the online world. I'm like, guys, again, deathbed thinking, are you really going to be worrying about whether you niched or didn't niche? No, you're not. So let's get over ourselves, But in those days of FDisruptors, niching wasn't really a discussion, but I just knew I had this vision of
you were doing it automatically.
Yeah, I was doing it from my heart.
Yeah.
These are the people that need me. This is what I'm going to give them, even though the world is probably thinking I should give them something else. And I stuck to it, and it worked, and I proved the concept. And then that's just carried over into my work now. And interestingly, I used to go to schools to talk about my work, and without fail, at the end, I would be surrounded by groups of teachers, especially women teachers, who would say, are you ever going to do anything for women our age?
Right.
And I'd be like, well, yeah, but let me get this off the ground first. I'll get to you. And I think I always planned to get to all of the different age groups. But then, of course, COVID hit and FDisruptors just took a nosedive. And that was when I was approached to do some coaching. And I was nervous to do it because at that point I wasn't a trained coach. But then I thought about it and thought, Deb, you've been doing this your entire life. Yeah. Come on, you can do it. And I was approached by Empowder, which is at the time was a brand new menopausal supplement. And they wanted me to work with them whilst they were going through their clinical trials and coach women who were going through the menopause. And I just, from the minute I did it, I thought, this is it. I'm home. I found it.
The bit of you that you talked about when you heard the life coach the first time round.
Yeah, completely. So it was, I think I was 47 at that point, and I was like, oh dear God, only 20 years later then. But when you know, and when it happens, and this is a big part of my work is...
And you felt it.
I felt it.
And because you reconnected.
Yeah. And also a state of readiness to let go of all of those old success blueprints that I'd been carrying around. Like, I will be successful if I do this, and this, and letting all of that go. And it did come off the back of something quite dramatic in my own personal life. But even that, I would never regret what happened then that made me move towards this even more and soften into it in a way that's fully revealed who I am,
I love it. I know when I first saw you when you were running that event, that Albright event in Manchester, and it was that soft power vibe that I was just digging. And I think deep down I knew that there was something. And then seeing all this come out this last year has just been, it's been ready for me at this time, but it probably would have been quite a bit sooner as well. Probably at 17.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's important work. I think it's important work.
Yeah.
Do you hear of any of the cohort that were on the FDisruptors? Do you see
I'm
how they're doing?
I'm still in touch. Yeah. One of them was actually, she was a friend of my daughter's, interestingly, who was in a grammar school locally. And she came through the program, and she's been one of the biggest success stories, because she now has taken herself off to work in Dubai and follow her dream, because and she still comes to visit me, and my daughter says it's a bit weird that my friend comes to see you and catch up with you and sometimes doesn't come to see me. And I still occasionally coach her, and I had, when she was 19, she was working at Unilever. So she ended up leaving school, part of the program. She just believed in herself so much that she just started to back herself and thought, I don't want to follow the university path. She went and got herself an apprenticeship at Unilever, which was was like a gold star kind of apprenticeship. And then she hired me as her coach when she was 19. 19, and backing yourself. She said, I want to move to the next level, Deb, and you're
I
it.
love it.
I know. It's
Just that
like,
backing yourself at that level and
yeah,
knowing it is just
yeah, yeah. And she transformed, and she was only 15, I think 14, nearly 15 at the time. And I remember specifically getting an email from her mum saying, would you mind if we met and had a coffee? And I was like, oh God, here we go. Here's the, I'm going to
I
get
love that
told
you always
off.
come with this
I
like
know.
trepidation. It's
I
like no one
was.
could possibly be saying something nice.
I know. But because I was trying stuff that was so
Yeah,
different,
yeah,
I
I
just
understand.
thought, am I overstepping the mark here? What's it going to be like? So anyway, we met up for coffee, and she the week before, because I used to bring in experts to talk to them, like very, very different people, again, very niche, to come in and talk to them about, this is my journey, this is what I left behind, the real guts and glory kind of conversations, really inspiring women. And after one of the sessions, Emily had said to me, Debbie, I love the inspiring women that come in every week. She said, I think my mum should come in and speak. And she'd gone home apparently that night and got in the car, and she'd said to her mum, you know what, mum, every week Debbie brings in really inspiring women, and I think you should be one of them. And that's what she came to tell me, because she said it. She said, I've spent my entire 14 years as a mother waiting to hear words like that. And it broke me open, you know. And she said, to be seen like that by my daughter as something other than just her mum, as an inspiring woman in the world doing my thing, it will stay with me forever. And then I think a few weeks later, Emily just turned to me and just said, I'll never be the same again. I want you to know that I am changed forever, I'll never be the same again. And so now there she is, I think about 18 months ago, nearly 2 years now. She just, after our coaching, she just said, right, I know what I need to do now. I'm going out for a big adventure, and it's going to be Dubai. And off she went. And she's just thriving. She's just
Yeah.
got, I think, her second promotion out there. And
And also what a place to go when you know yourself more like
oh
that.
my God,
When
yeah.
we talk about just hurling ourselves into these situations, but to do it, but being so prepared and with such a,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing to watch. And they still message me on LinkedIn. And, I think I put a post up about FDisruptors, and sort of for the first time ever this year, I felt okay to be really honest about how difficult it was running a tech startup, and especially when, my dad passed away 8 weeks into me launching the startup, and then COVID hit, 2 years later. And I felt honest, and I felt ready enough to be honest on LinkedIn. I think I put a post up, and one of the young girls, who was the youngest, she was 13 when she came on it. Pal, she was absolutely gorgeous, and she just popped into one and sent a message and said, "I'm so sorry that that was going on for you, but just so you know, it changed my life."
Yeah.
So it all weaves in, doesn't it? One of my clients now, and she's been working with me. She's in her second year of working with me. She was one of the management team at Unilever when I was doing a hackathon with them, with the girls. And she said, "I just remember sitting across a table from you when we were talking about organizing the event and thinking, Jesus, this is what modern leadership needs to look like." So it's amazing how many of those people from those days are still in my world. So, when you are out there niching down, weaving your magic, and sometimes wondering, does the world even know that they need this right now? It's on some level, it's working, it's landing for somebody somewhere.
Well, nothing had been so specific for them before in that way. Like we all talk about, it's a man's world, how education is built, how the workplace is built. And it takes, as you describe yourself, very simple but drastic.
Yeah,
um, Simple but drastic changes. So simple, it's like, why is nobody doing this?
yeah,
And drastic because, yeah, it does make those powerful changes.
yeah, yeah.
So I love that. So how is this looking for you now going forward? So I know that there's the program that you're doing, is it Love Pioneer?
Yeah.
How's that going and developing?
That is probably the culmination of everything we spoke about, all wrapped
Yeah.
into one giant white box. It's my own white box with a bow on it. It is. It's it's like my playground, my gifts, my
Love,
place.
love.
It's everything that has got me to this stage, and that that's me all wrapped up in a program. It could not be any more the essence of me, and to be able to bring that to the world. And I'm going to be really honest here, that I still think that, surprisingly, people still, it's like when you talk about niching, people are very polarized by self-love, because they
Yeah.
either dismiss it out of hand and think, oh, here we go, yeah, another woman talking about bubbles and bath bombs. Or they think, no, 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 that's not for me. I haven't got time for that. So don't come at me with your self-love shit. So, I'm toughening up, strangely, the more I bring self-love to the world. Because, I've stood in front of groups of people, and they look like they want to throw their shoes at me when I start to talk, and it blows my mind. But
Yeah.
every time that happens, I have to remind myself, this is the work.
Yeah.
No good work that has changed the world has ever been done through ease.
Yeah.
So I have to accept that it's going to take me a while to educate people to a point where they think, oh my God, I get it. So that is really where I'm at with Love Pioneer, is that I'm just going to be out in the world more and more, telling people, do you know what? You think it's bubbles and bath bombs? Let me show you what it really means.
And what it can do.
Yeah, and what it can do, it's like, well, how do you take self-love into the boardroom when you've got somebody banging their fist on a table and telling you that, well, they want answers from you? It's, how do you take self-love into really challenging conversations? How do you take deep self-love into setting powerful boundaries? How do you take deep self-love into not abandoning your needs? These are all, they are strategy. And if self-love isn't in your strategy, then something's missing. You are creating what I call sub-optimal conditions from which to build something that matters to you. if you're
Well, you
building
can't
something
just,
that matters to you, you have to matter to you first.
yeah.
You know, it's just not where I think the world needs to be next. I think we've done that. We've done that bit where we're all very happy to make that inner contract with ourselves where we go, do you know what? To achieve greatness with that, I'm willing to sacrifice myself. You know, we're done with that.
Yeah.
We're so
I
done
am
with it.
anyway.
Yeah. And you're not on your own. I'm done with it. You're done with it. Interestingly, the young women, like I've got 2 young daughters and their friends, they're already done with it
Yeah.
because they've seen us be exhausted by it. So they're rejecting
And
it
not get
outright.
rewarded for it either. It's
No.
like what you said, you're waiting for this moment and you just, it keeps not happening, and almost the reverse, or
Yeah.
not almost,
Yeah.
you get the reverse. Yeah, I love it. And it is like the power of self-love, the power of niche. It's the same in the sense of it's putting yourself first and
Yeah.
making something that works for you and is about you for people like you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how can that not be just a powerful thing?
It's a powerful thing just in and of itself, you know, and I sort of reject outright the thought that loving yourself, you know, that whole thing, loving yourself is a radical act. Well, bugger to that. It should be like breathing,
Should
mate.
just be
It's
like
not,
normal.
yeah. It's like I
It
get
is
up
fun,
in the
but
day and I open my eyes and I think about myself. Radical. Radical. It's no.
yeah.
You know, it's that real, there's a sort of fiery audaciousness to it as well right now that feels really good, and a very unapologetic energy to it. And I think sometimes that can frighten people because they think, oh my God, that's going to need me to be confident and out there and extrovert. No, the thing that self-love allows you is the freedom to bring your authentic self in the most real way that you ever have, with no expectations other than the ones you want to place on yourself, and that's it.
And to see those reactions of people, it's like that how that much that frightens people is
Yeah.
like your FDisruptors looking around the room, but on a more aggressive
Yeah.
scale.
Yeah.
So no, I think it's great work. I've absolutely loved seeing the stuff you've been putting out this year, and
Thank
I
you.
advise anyone to go follow. We'll put details to your Instagram and LinkedIn and in the show notes.
Great.
And I think that's it. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or
No,
say?
just all I would say is you don't need all you really need for any of this work is just an open heart.
Lovely.
That's it. Simple as. Even if you just crack it open with curiosity, that's all you need. So check me out, take what you need, bin the rest, set yourself free. You know, that's what we're all about. It's self love. Well, I call it deep self love because it is more than that bubbles and bath bombs that you see, but it is quite honestly the most fucking liberating thing you will ever do for yourself.
Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome.
All right.
Lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Right, I've stopped it.